84 million people watched the sacred Riana's AGT audition. However, what was hidden by the cameras was more sinister. The transmission went dark during her performance in the quarterfinals. Around her, staff members muttered about odd mishaps and equipment malfunctions. Some wouldn't go into the rooms where she practiced. Then, when the last person to address her by her true name passed away in 2023, her entire world fell apart. She completely collapsed and disappeared from society. The devastating reality of what fame had truly cost her was made clear by her 2024 poi for return. The world knows Marie Antoinette Riana Grajarani as the Sacred Riana. She was born in Jakarta, Indonesia, on July 13, 1992. Her life was anything but normal from the time she opened her eyes. Krisyandy Yuniarto, her father, was no typical magician. He was an expert at creating psychological illusions. Applause wasn't his magic. The goal was to make them uneasy and make them wonder what was real. Growing up, Riana saw him transform ordinary rooms into places where quiet felt oppressive and shadows seemed alive. Around her, illusion and reality merged daily. This weird realm was further fostered by Jakarta's rich traditions of mysticism and ghost stories. She had turned into a living ghost story by the time she made her television debut. Her work combined psychological deception, her father's gloomy art, and Indonesian folklore in a frightening way. The Sacred Riana Beginning is a 2019 horror movie. Pictured a made-up childhood that was just as unsettling as her actual one. Her family operated a funeral home in a tiny town in that story. Her father was a coffin builder. Her mother got the remains ready for burial. Little Riana was surrounded by death every day. She was not afraid, though. As though she knew the dead better than the living, the movie depicted her finding serenity among them. Then something went wrong. To Jakarta, her family escaped. Her world became even darker as a result of her dislocation and loss of home. The funeral home lingered inside her forever, with its subdued sadness. She demonstrated it on stage with her slow, ceremonial gestures and unwavering gaze. She developed into an artist who used magic to transform fear itself. Riana hardly ever participated in activities or conversations when she was little. She was described as eerily perceptive. She would observe from corners. Adults were rendered silent by her contemplative questions about life and death. She found refuge in ghost stories. She was drawn to decaying structures and cemeteries. She moved toward the shadows as other children fled from them. Her family was quick to notice. It wasn't merely a phase. This was her character. Riana was inspired by horror when she developed her stage character. She got her appearance from Sadako, the ghost from the Japanese movie Ringu. The white outfit, the silent threat, and the long hair covering her face. Riana, however, made a fresh addition. She combined this terror with the enchantment of Darren Brown, Chris Angel, and David Copperfield. They were awestruck, but she made them freeze in terror. She didn't just move about. She spent several hours honing them. The jerky, puppet-like hands, the sluggish blink, the abrupt head twitch. Even her posture, which made her appear like a broken doll with her legs bent. Everything was planned. She never left the stage, never letting the illusion falter, and remained in character for hours. It became difficult to distinguish between Riana the person and Riana the ghost. Riana, her doll, ended up becoming her best friend. The doll wasn't merely a prop, it was dressed like Riana and gawked. A part of her was in there. There was discussion over what Riana meant when she remarked, "Riani protects me." Some claimed that the doll symbolized her lost youth. At one point, she insisted on not performing until the doll was delivered to her, even if it meant sending someone across Jakarta at midnight. The doll served as her fulcrum amid a terrible world she had created. Not quite infantile nor entirely mature, even her voice was designed to evoke a faint, tremulous murmur. Months of practice helped her perfect it. On stage, every word she said had weight. People shivered at the sound alone. Perhaps the most terrifying aspect of her story, though, was how she deleted her previous identity. Social media was a clean slate for her. Marie Antoinette Riana Graharani was no longer visible in any posts, pictures, or other content. Riana felt it was necessary, but her friends were surprised. The holy Riana couldn't be a fictional figure, she had to be real. For years, nobody could tell if she was a real person or a ghost. She was immortalized by this erasure. It made her memorable, but it also cost her a piece of herself. On Indonesian television on November 17, 2013, a memorable event occurred. The next Mentalist is a magic competition when a young woman named Marie Antoinette Riana Graharani took the stage. Soon, she would be referred to as the Sacred Riana. She appeared to have stepped out of a nightmare, concealing her face with long, untidy hair, bending one leg, and carrying a doll named Riani at all times. She never spoke, hardly moved, and maintained that weird, spectral appearance as millions of others watched in disbelief. At first, no one was expecting much from her, but she surprised everyone. In the end, she came in second. For someone who was so new and had such an odd style, it was astounding. Her quiet, eerie performance sparked conversation. Did she possess anything genuinely supernatural, or was she only a magician? There was a surge of interest in Riana toward the end of the performance. Later, more than 70 million people would watch her films on the internet. However, behind the scenes, she had a difficult time. She was shunned by many in the entertainment industry after her initial high-profile appearance. Families found her act too frightening, according to producers. She was completely rejected by some TV networks. They feared religious organizations and parents would voice their disapproval. At least 5 major shows requested her to adjust her behavior or fired her. They tried to make her less scary. "Stop being so silent," they said. Even to lessen her makeup, they advised her. Riana was stuck. Her career looked as if it would end before it had really begun. Nevertheless, she persisted rather than giving up. Her determination increased as they continued to reject her. Over time, she gained the trust of many who had previously questioned her. Riana's greatest strength was also the source of her hardship. She was not going to be uncharacteristic. Not backstage, not in interviews, and not on stage either. Even when there were no cameras around, she always pretended to be. The revered Riana. Rather than speaking, she muttered. She refused to meet people's eyes. She continued her odd twitching. As a result, she was difficult to work with. She refused to respond to certain directors personally, so they had to write notes. She would simply respond with one word or remain mute, which caused several interviewers to give up. According to even her staff, it seemed as though Marie had vanished and she was constantly transformed into the revered Riana. She stopped using her true identity on social media and in public, attempting to preserve the mystery. Riana had a very unglamorous life from 2013 to 2016. She was having financial difficulties even after her name became well known. She frequently gave very little money performances at local concerts or small parties. Upholding her appearance was expensive. Her cosmetics, decorations, and outfits required ongoing attention. At times, she was forced to decide between paying for necessities and spending money on her act. There were months when she made nearly nothing, yet her family assisted when she didn't have a job. She refused to alter her performance in order to obtain better employment because the Indonesian magic scene didn't pay well. She thought it would eventually pay off to remain true to herself. Her life became more and more lonely over time. Marie's boundaries with the holy Riana dissolved. She stopped attending family functions. Outside of her shows, she hardly spoke. It seemed to even her closest friends that she had turned into a ghost. They compared it to trying to get in touch with someone who was no longer physically present. Riana had poured her heart and soul into her role. Everyone was shocked when the Sacred Riana appeared on Asia's Got Talent in 2017. After airing in late 2017, it quickly picked up steam. She looked like a quiet, jittery young woman. Much of her face was hidden by her hair. To heighten the terror, she held a ghostly doll. The act began in utter quiet. Her movements were sluggish and unsettling. The judges and spectators were unable to turn away. She worked weird illusions. One was an apparent self-moving card trick. The end was the most terrifying. She was photographed standing next to Judge Ongun, but Ongun did not recall her presence. Ongun appeared alarmed. She even backed away in terror. Over 70 million people viewed the audition on YouTube and Facebook in a few of weeks. The audition turned out to be one of the most watched Got Talent shows ever. In the history of the show, viewers referred to it as the scariest act. Footage of Ongun's actual terror went viral. Globally, Riana's blend of magic and horror captivated readers. She wasn't the front-runner-up until the December 14, 2017, grand finale. Everyone predicted that a Filipino dancing squad called DMX Convalinos would win. The judges and spectators were pleased by their enthusiasm and talent. Even judges David Foster and Jay Park appeared to be rooting for the Filipino team to win. However, something unexpected then occurred. It went to the holy Riana. It was all made possible by popular votes. The $100,000 main prize was awarded to her. Being the first actor from the horror genre to win a major international talent contest, she created history. She had gathered the backing of her fans. The finals featured 3 Filipino artists. Riana's victory altered the perception of what a talent show winner could be, even if a victory for the Philippines looked certain. The crowd had selected a bold and unique option. It was an even stranger narrative because of what transpired behind the scenes. The judges were really startled by Riana's performances. Ongun suffered the most. She continued to be Riana's target. Her trickery and haunting seances were too real. Ongun was truly afraid. At times, she backed away or fled the stage. After the show, she later claimed to have experienced nightmares. When Riana did something, the crew would often joke that Ongun needed comfort. The fact that Riana never departed from her role added to the horror. Her uncanny silence persisted even when the cameras were not rolling. Long after the performances were ended, judges and crew were still apprehensive. Few could forget the fear that Riana had instilled. The world was immediately aware. Her tale was reported by international media within hours of her victory. Her social media following soared to millions of followers. She was sought for to perform in Asia, Europe, and the United States. The event planners were eager for her to arrive. She was invited to major events and chat shows, and makes offers to star in TV shows and movies. According to her manager, she always acted in character. She didn't want to let down admirers who were expecting the eerie girl they had seen on television. She performed continuously for months due to the tremendous demand. Her travels took her to new places. People everywhere were impacted by her blend of magic and terror. At StarCrate Riana's Season 13 audition, one of the scariest occurrences in America's Got Talent history occurred. Intense enough that more than 84 million people watched it online. StarCrate, with her frightening gaze, stepped onto the stage. She twitched, held on to her eerie doll, and remained silent. When she walked up to the judges' table, the atmosphere felt heavy. Every eye was on Mel B. First, Riana displayed a clipping from the newspaper about a fatal fire. Mel B was then asked to select a murderer from a collection of victim pictures. Following Mel B's gesture, Riana snapped a Polaroid picture of herself. Mel B stopped when the photo developed. Bob, the alleged murderer, was a ghostly apparition in the picture standing behind her, as if he were observing her from another planet. People in the audience let out a gasp. Mel B cried out in surprise. On the internet, the picture became viral. On whether it was a camera trick or something more sinister, many argued. One of the scariest acts ever seen on primetime TV was Mel B's obvious fear and Riana's motionless expression. It was much more memorable because of Simon Cowell's response. Even though Simon is not usually afraid, he banged his red buzzer during Riana's performance, but not because he detested it. The look on his face was one of sheer fear. The conduct continued to escalate. The strain, the silence, Polaroid. They were all surprised by Simon's buzzer explosion. Melanie B. called out, "Why did you do that?" Everyone in the crowd was stunned. The other jurors were also shaken. A judge rarely gets excited because they are afraid rather than bored. Following the video's viral success, viewers began analyzing Simon's every action to see whether or not he genuinely believed that something supernatural was occurring. Rihanna's creepy legend was deepened by this. Stranger things happened when she performed on August 21, 2018, in the quarterfinals. This time, ghostly doubles and voodoo dolls were deployed by Rihanna. The hub of it all was Mel B. The performance intensified until, abruptly, the TV show cut to darkness in the middle of a scream. The viewers at home gazed bewilderedly at their TVs. Then the ads started. Rihanna was gone by the time the show came back. The judges talked in strange, ambiguous terms. Nobody gave a reason for the blackout. The popularity of social media took off. Were there technical issues? Suppression? Or something far more eerie? The reality surfaced a few days later. To create excitement and heighten the fright, the filmmakers orchestrated the darkness. That was successful. This moment became the season's most talked about event. Wondering what was produced and what was real, fans couldn't stop. The appearance of Sacred Riana created even more anxiety behind the scenes. She was so unsettling to the crew that some of them wouldn't let her alone during rehearsals. She never wavered from her persona. She said nothing. She continued her twitchy, unsettling demeanor even when the cameras were not rolling. Strange malfunctions and chills were muttered about when she was around. Lights flickered. The apparatus malfunctioned. Some employees simply wouldn't let her into the rehearsal area if she was there. Experienced AGT professionals acknowledged that Rihanna irritated them more than anyone else. This backstage anxiety only served to increase her notoriety. However, in the end, it was insufficient. In the quarterfinals on August 27, 2018, Rihanna was eliminated. Her vote total was insufficient. The pair transcend outperformed her. Supporters were taken aback. Many viewed it as a setback to the show. Rihanna, according to insiders, was devastated and disillusioned. She felt that audiences who weren't prepared for her kind of horror magic didn't understand her. The Holy Rihanna took the stage on the global stage and stepped onto the big screen on March 14, 2019. It wasn't your typical horror movie. It was the Sacred Riana, the first time an America's Got Talent contestant featured in their own film. First, she related the unsettling tale of her early years. The family of Rihanna had a small-town funeral home. They relocated to Jakarta after calamity struck. There, Rihanna discovered an odd doll that she called Riani. Her only companion was the doll. She stopped attending school and avoided everyone because she held on to it so tenaciously. Unusual incidents began to occur. Following her teacher's visit, things became frightful. It left the audience unsure of what was real. And the thoughts that Rihanna had. In Indonesia, the movie had its premiere. Later, it made its way to Singapore and Malaysia. The film elevated Rihanna from a local celebrity to a regional horror icon. July 28, 2022, saw the arrival of the Holy Riana 2 Bloody Mary. This time the fear was more intense. Throughout the novel, Rihanna made a valiant effort to locate her misplaced doll in a haunting girls' dorm. In central Java, in the Van der Weyck Fortress, a location with its own ghost stories, the movie was filmed. The effects were more sophisticated. It was more genuine, the horror. How much the role affected Rihanna herself, however, was the most unsettling aspect. She was always in character, both on and off set. She worried the workers and actors. They were concerned that the job was altering her in ways that might be permanent. The movie did really well. Audiences flocked to theaters and were really stunned by her performance. Following these films, Rihanna faced a new obstacle. She was on The Great Magician Show from December 2019 until March 2020. Her eerie behaviors, however, remained the same. She built her reputation by judging with the same rigid, sluggish gestures and blank expression. She mostly used little gestures and very little spoken. The contestants were both afraid and honored. What her quiet indicated was unknown to them. Fans adored it. Its ratings increased. Watchers waited to see what she would do next. Nor did Riana stop there. She launched a Spotify podcast titled Kisa Horror, The Sacred Riana. It gained popularity. She related spooky stories from her personal life as well as the myths that influenced her. Her whispering ghost stories into their ears was described by fans as having that effect. Long after each episode aired, the podcast continued to evoke unease. It was listed among the best horror podcasts in Indonesia. In July 2023, Riana traveled to Kuala Lumpur to perform her live event, Conjuring Live. In the plenary chamber were more than 2,500 individuals. She requested that they bring objects that had formerly belonged to their departed lovers. These items were part of her delusions. Tickets ranged in price from Rm288 to Rm688, and they quickly sold out. In December, she performed the same act at the Star Theatre in Singapore. Everyone was seated. 12 parts of the show's journey to life after death were presented to the audience. It went beyond just a show. As a result, individuals began to doubt their beliefs regarding the spirit realm. In spite of her success, Riana was having difficulties. She lost her sense of sacred Riana's boundaries by 2019. Her true self, Marie, then started. Dissociative identity tension is what doctors named it. Every day she was sacred Riana. She ceased to use her given name. She used the third person while speaking about herself. Friends and family began to worry about her. What she truly was slipping away. Her theatrical mask had become a part of her, according to one doctor, because she had worn it for so long. She lost her world in August 2023. A stroke claimed her grandfather's life unexpectedly. He was the only one who continued to refer to her as Marie. He recalled how she had adored magic as a little child. His passing struck her deeply. Her remaining performances for the year were cancelled. In her flat, she shut herself in. Not even her favorite doll could console her any longer. She said nothing more. She had no desire to act. The tiny barrier separating the former Riana from the holy woman was ripped down by the loss. She experienced a complete breakdown by October. She became quiet and hardly moved. Her crew helped her. She made reservations at a luxury health facility in the countryside. Supporters were unaware of her whereabouts. She held her doll while sitting quietly in the clinic and gazing at her reflection. She appeared to be lost and looking for the girl she used to be. She took a while to fully recover. After years, the clinic assisted her in removing the makeup and costume. It was emancipating and tragic. She reconnected with her former joy in treatment by using magic tricks. When she performed a basic card trick for another patient in December, she sobbed and smiled. She was stronger by January 2024, but she was still not sure of her true identity. Riana was already a worldwide celebrity. She took the stage as the champion of Britain's Got Talent on August 31, 2019. Everyone was observing. In 2018, the same act frightened millions of people on America's Got Talent after winning Asia's Got Talent in 2017. Her performances have been viewed over 70 million times online. It was anticipated that her uncanny spell would once again silence judges. But everyone was startled by what transpired. The first round saw her eliminated. She didn't make any progress in spite of her enormous fanbase and notoriety. Supporters were taken aback. Critics did not understand. There was no emotion in the audience or judges. Perhaps they had been looking for something fresh and distinctive. She began to deteriorate on the stage of the International Talent Contest that evening. At one point, she was referred to as the most airy act in Got Talent's history. Now, though, her early departure serves as a reminder of how swiftly celebrity may wane. An attempt was made by Riana to return in January 2023. America's Got Talent, All Stars was where she went back to. Only 60 of the thousands of acts were welcomed back. That was proof enough of her influence. Over 84 million people viewed her 2018 audition. She was memorable, according to Simon Cowell himself, but history didn't repeat itself. The first round saw her eliminated. During her act, Howie Mandel acknowledged that he was genuinely afraid. But dread was insufficient. It appeared the judges wanted more than horror. The enchantment that had seemed new now felt old. She made it obvious by eliminating. The industry and the public had changed. She discovered again that viral popularity is short-lived. The fall of 2022 saw Riana visit France. In season 17, she participated in La France, an unstoppable talent. She advanced to the semi-finals this time around. In a nation with a reputation for having strict judges, it was a victory. Marianne James, one judge, was dumbfounded. She was hailed as a sensation by the French press. She continued to captivate people in France with her eerie illusions. She was less frequent in their lives. The matter remained a mystery. It demonstrated a significant point. What is considered modern in one location may nevertheless feel outdated in another. She participated in Italia's Got Talent in September 2023. It was the version from Disney+, meant for a younger audience. It didn't work out, though. Even the selecting process was unsuccessful for her. Her action, which had been so strong, now appeared foreseeable. Her popularity on social media did not impress the Italian audience. This was an unpleasant time. She was unable to generate curiosity in a nation that enjoys magic and drama. Judges were formerly horrified by the behavior, but now it seemed normal. Entertainment was no longer the same. Next came her return. In February 2024, she made a comeback to the Australian stage. In Perth, she performed the sacred Riana by herself from February 2 to February 18. She was performing for the first time in Australia. The 11 shows were all sold out. Within days, all of the tickets were sold. Fans of all ages crowded the magical ballroom. Some people couldn't stand the tension in the room and departed in the middle of the show. It was more than a mere resurgence. A rebirth occurred. Her social networks came back to life. She provided behind-the-scenes photos and videos from the performances. The Perth run demonstrated that she was still in charge of a room. She still had the ability to frighten a crowd. However, something had been altered. Her act had evolved beyond merely frightening audiences. A narrative, a personal one, was told. Riana began using her delusions to investigate fame, loss, and sadness. The question she posed was chilling. What occurs if the ghost you dread is actually you? She now combined intense emotion and horror in her magic. In her acts, she even used objects that the audience members brought. As a result, each show was distinct and intimate. She revealed aspects of herself that had never been displayed before. Audiences were taken aback by this new path. Additionally, it changed the definition of a magic show. The stage was no longer only a place of employment for Riana. It was how she lived. She alluded in interviews to the fact that performing made her feel more human. The 2024 concerts had a genuine, earthy feel. Despite the trauma, others could see her weakness. It was an emotional release with each act. She made both herself and the audience confront difficult realities. Fear and healing came together in her performances. For those who attended her live performance, it was more than just amusement. It demonstrated the human spirit's resilience and the therapeutic value of art.